Theodora leads the Byzantine Empire in Civilization 5, and unfortunately, more often than not, she leads them to a defeat. A really sore defeat, because Byzantium in Civilization 5 is widely regarded as a hot trash civ right down the bottom at S tier. Wait, S tier? No, F tier. Let's talk some more about Civilization 5's Byzantium and the problem that is Theodora's leadership. To begin with, basically everything that you can do playing as the Civ is all about your religion. You can see me founding mine here in the gameplay. Indeed, Theodora's unique ability is all about Constantinople. When you found a religion, you pick a bonus belief that's in addition to the founder and first follower beliefs. You can see me doing it here on screen now. I, for starters, had my pantheon that took me through into my religious screen, where I was able to choose not 2 benefits like you normally would, tithe and religious community, but a third one. I chose to get some culture from my shrines on top. This is really the main benefit to Byzantines, but also one of their significant downfalls. You see, if you don't get a religion, or you don't intend to play a religious game, instantly you get nothing. Nothing from playing them. So there's your first big downfall. The Civ's unique ability only applies to religion, and it only gives you that one additional belief. That's it. If you don't have a religion, you don't get to take advantage of it. However, there are a few things you do get to take advantage of, and so, in fairness to what is perhaps not the best Civ in the game, let's discuss them. The Byzantines have 2 unique units. They don't get a unique tile or a unique building. This again tends to be a sign of either a really powerful Civ or a very weak one, and unfortunately, I think it's the latter in this case. Their first unique unit is a boat, which instantly sets them off on a bad footing. As many of us will know, naval units and boats in 4X strategy games, and particularly in Civilization, in the Sid Meier's Civilization franchise anyway, tend to not be as strong because naval units aren't widely as used. Ocean tiles tend to be more, shall I say, useless, or at the very least less productive than land tiles, and more often than not, you don't really even use them in a game. But their Dromon, it's a replacement to the trireme, does have a couple of unique features that are worth mentioning. It has a ranged attack instead of a melee attack, and this is unique. It's actually the first naval ranged unit you can get in the game, and it is of course unique to the Byzantine Empire. However, it comes with some pretty serious drawbacks. It costs roughly 25% more to produce, 20% more to purchase if you're buying it with gold. Upgrading it costs 100% more, that's right, twice as much to upgrade. It of course has no melee attack, it is purely a ranged unit now. Oh, and also its overall strength is down 20% as well, down from 10 to 8. You might think, geez, Jumbo, that's quite a long list of negative attributes, and you would be right. It does have a few positives, of course, to make up for it. As I say, it is a ranged unit with a ranged attack strength of 10. That's fairly good for this era in the game anyway. It has a 50% bonus against naval units, nice to have, although in reality, this early in the game, you're probably only going to be fighting some barbarian naval units unless you're fighting against a specific early game naval civ. Maybe you're fighting some Vikings. You're probably not going to find a lot of versatility from that extra strength against naval units. Also, it is slightly cheaper to upgrade as well. But all in all, what it really does is give you an earlier Galleass. Galleass being the normal naval ranged unit. This time we have their unique Dromon, which is unlocked, as I say, in that ancient era. It's a quick unlock, it's a ranged unit, but it's a naval unit. Take what you will from it. I have some reasonable gameplay of it here where I get to put it to some use. Although I can't help but reflect on if I'd just had a naval melee unit like the trireme, it would have been just as good. Of course, this unit can only cross through those coastal tiles. It can't cross into deep ocean, so you don't get any extra movement out of it. Speaking of extra movement and actually losing extra movement, the second unique unit of the Byzantines is a replacement to the horseman. Again, we see an early game unit unlocked with horseback riding in the classical era. The Cataphract does have a slight movement penalty, unfortunately, down from 4 to 3. That's fairly significant and makes it one of the slowest mounted units in the entire game. These units are usually very quick, this one is not. It can move after attacking though, so you can strike and heal and do all those wonderful things that we're used to with more advanced units within this class. Other changes include a slight strength buff up from 12 to 15. It can receive defensive bonuses, unlike the unit that it replaces, and it receives slightly less of a penalty versus cities, but you still do receive a penalty versus cities. So you're better off at fighting units with this replacement to the horseman, but you can use it to strike cities, and indeed you will see me do a little bit of that towards the end of this video here. Now let's move on and talk strategy, because we've got a little bit to discuss. Because oh my, you're gonna need some strategy if you want to make the Byzantine Empire work on any difficulty other than the lowest of lows. Now, first up, I think we need to think about how can we actually win the game with Byzantium. First up, you need to make sure that you get a religion, okay? If you want to get any benefit out of playing as Byzantium, you want to get a religion and you want to ensure that you keep it. So clearly, faith generation is going to be important to us. Next up, of course, we need to consider culture as well. Our cultural policies, our social policies, how are they going to relate to how we can actually win the game? And I think there are really two feasible pathways. First up, you could try and win the game using faith and culture. Secondly, you could go for a domination-assisted victory, and that's largely thanks to the fact that while Byzantium's 2 unique units are not necessarily anything to write home about, you might be able to use them to your advantage in that early game to snag an enemy city, to prevent an enemy from settling an area that you like, or to pick up perhaps an easier target like 1 or 2 city-states, to quickly catapult yourself slightly ahead of the opposition so that you can sort of cement a good spot. And I think those are the two things that you should really be considering as well. How can I use domination to my advantage, and how can I use my religion to my advantage? In terms of social policies, I would recommend in the early game going for liberty and piety. Now you can sort of stretch these a little bit depending on where you start and who you start with, i.e. do you want to bring in honor perhaps to assist a more domination oriented victory? That's up to you, but fundamentally I think the liberty and piety openers are going to be very strong. Grab liberty and use it to get your free workers or free settlers. You can also use it to unlock building the pyramids, which the AI doesn't tend to do, and it can be a good way for you not only to pick up a wonder, but also to pick up 2 free workers in the early game, because you're probably going to be quite busy in your cities. Not only do you have 2 unique units in the early game that at the very least you'll want to build 1 or 2 of to defend. Even if you don't intend to go out and fight anybody, these are relatively strong units for their era, and you should use them at least defensively. But there's more. Of course, because you're trying to build up a religion, you're going to need to prioritize getting some shrines down and also getting your temples down as well. Combo that with the fact that you're also probably going to want a couple of cultural buildings and some scientific buildings, and you can see why you're going to need quite a few cities if you're going to want to successfully be able to build everything in the early game that you need to build. For that reason, liberty makes sense. You're probably not going to be playing too tall with the Byzantines, but you can definitely play wide. Support that with the piety tree, particularly as you work your way through it. You can of course pick up another belief for your religion, and as you'll see in this footage, my religion goes crazy. I have all of the different followers' beliefs and everything I can unlock to try and make it as strong as possible. Is there a religious victory condition in Civilization 5? No, but you can use your religion to your advantage to fuel your victory condition. And that's really the only way you're going to be able to beat the game with the Byzantiums, particularly on those higher difficulties. On lower difficulties, you may be able to do it, but on higher ones, it's going to be quite the challenge, I assure you. They are absolutely a garbage tier Civ in Civ 5, but that doesn't mean you can't have a bit of fun with them along the way, and as you've seen in my footage today, I did just that. Thank you very much for watching this video on the Byzantine Empire in Civilization 5. If you did enjoy it, you could consider sticking around. I mean, it's free to subscribe, and making that like button turn blue is so satisfying. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.